Well, hello and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here. I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer, and you're in my employment law session. This is yours live employment law session where you get to ask me questions and get some workplace answers, some workplace issues resolved. Again, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer. I'm one of the founding partners of Samfiru Tumarkin LLP. We're the largest employment law firm in Canada. You can find us in Ontario, BC, and Alberta. And once a week, sometimes twice a week, I log on right here and I'm at your service. I'm here to answer your questions about workplace rights. You have rights, and I can give you answers, whether you've been wrongfully dismissed, if you've lost your job and are wondering, is that even legal? If you're staring at a severance letter, if your job has changed, your hours, your compensation, your responsibilities. Maybe you're being forced to come back to the office when you've been working remotely, or maybe you're just not treated properly. In all those scenarios, in all those situations, there's things that you can do. And a great starting point, fantastic starting point, is right here, right now, by asking your question. You can type in that question into the box on the screen. You can hit enter, and it's going to just magically pop up on my screen. I will see it, I will read it, and I will answer it. I will give you answers and solutions and knowledge. So this is such a great opportunity for you to get those issues resolved. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Don't stress out on your own yourself without answers if you're dealing with a workplace issue. I know very well from speaking with thousands of people over the years that when you're dealing with a workplace issue, it can be extremely stressful. It can impact your well-being, your health. Don't let that happen to you when there's a better option. That better option is right here, right now, to ask your question of me, Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru Tumarkin LLP. And this is a 30-minute session. Beyond this 30 minutes, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not taking my jacket or tie off. I'm going to continue working. You can reach me anytime and my team off social media just by going to employmentlawyer.ca. You see that address on the screen, employmentlawyer.ca. The phone number is there if you want to call. The email address is there if you want to send an email. If you want to fill out a form, it's there as well. So I'm going to continue, or I'm going to start answering questions right now. In the meantime, as you're listening to me answer questions, please ask yours. Don't be afraid. There's no bad questions. I've never been asked a bad questions. There's only answers and solutions. Again, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru Tumarkin LLP, with you, for you, at your service. Let's get to answering some questions, but ask yours as well. Thank you. All right, I see. First question of the day comes to you. Come to us from YouTube from Kaya. If you are terminated because you simply couldn't perform to your employer's standards, is that considered terminated with or terminated without cause? In most cases, Kaya, that would be a without cause termination. Why? A termination for cause is very extreme. It's only for the worst offenders. You would have had to do something really, really bad in order to be terminated for cause. And if your performance is not where your employer wants it to be, that's not a for cause termination. That's going to be a without cause termination. Now, why does it matter? What is the difference between with cause or without cause? I can tell you in one word: severance. Severance is the difference. If you're terminated for cause because you did something awful, you don't get severance. Otherwise, in every other situation, we call that a termination without cause, you get your full severance. That could be as much as 2 years' pay. So that's a huge difference between being terminated for cause and without cause. Here's what happens very often. An employer doesn't realize that. An employer can think that they have the ability, the right to terminate for cause when they don't. So every day I get contacted by people that supposedly were terminated for cause without severance, and that's wrong. The employer did not have cause. The law would have considered that a without cause termination, and the employer has to pay full severance. So Kaya, unless you've done something awful, you're owed your full severance. That's a without cause termination. If you're let go, call me immediately, right away, and I'll help you make sure you get everything that you're owed. Thank you for that, Kaya. Great question. Great way to start us off today here. And if you've just joined me and you're wondering, well, what is this all about? Well, thank you for being here. I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru Tumarkin LLP, and this is my live stream session where I answer your questions. I see more questions have come in. I'm going to answer them right now, but please ask your question too. Don't be bashful. Don't assume that there's no answers, because there are answers and solutions. All right. Next question is from Vegetable Team. All right, let's go with that. If I am currently on maternity leave, scheduled to go back in December, could I, in the meantime, take work from home contract for 6 months from a different company? I don't intend to leave my original position, but I'm wondering if there are any labor obligations to disclose requirements if I did take up a contract. Don't do that, okay? If you're working somewhere else, number one, you're not going to get EI, so you're going to be disqualified, and your employer may find out and ultimately not have a job for you. So don't do that. That's a very bad idea. The whole point of a parental leave is you're off work because you're caring for your child. So if you're doing other work, maybe you could do that work for your original employer. Not a good idea. I would avoid that. And if you're ready to go back to work, contact your employer, and that's that. Thank you for that. Good question. And as you see, very easy to ask questions, very easy to get answers, very easy for me to tell you what this all means and what you can do and what the law says. All right. Again, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer. Let's answer some more questions. And please don't just be listening. Listening is amazing. It's great. Ask question, even better. Renee has our next question. I went on short-term disability, and when I went back to work, my boss was treating me very badly, micromanaging and asking me to document all processes, always talking down to me. She can't stand me, and I know she wants to let me go. How long will she wait to let me go? Well, I certainly can't tell you how long she'll wait. I don't know her. I haven't spoken to her. So I don't know how long she'll wait. If she does let you go, you're owed severance. But here's something else. This is a form of harassment. If what you're saying is correct, it's a form of harassment, and you don't have to continue working that way. In fact, if you can show that you're being mistreated in that way and you're being bullied and pushed and just not treated fairly, you may be able to leave and force the company to pay you severance. We call this constructive dismissal. So you may be able to consider your employment as being terminated. The key is to be able to prove that harassment, because your boss is not going to admit it. But for now, here's what I would want you to do. Is there an owner or HR person that you can go to and tell them in writing what's been happening with your manager? Because once you tell them about that, they're under a legal obligation to investigate this and to deal with it. They're not allowed to ignore it. Okay, so one of the best ways to fix this issue is to tell your employer, tell whoever is in charge, whoever the right person is in your workplace, about the situation, and have them deal with it. If they deal with it, fantastic. If they don't deal with it, potentially I can force them to, or I can get you out of that workplace. So don't just sit there and kind of suffer. And potentially, if you're now being mistreated because you went on short-term disability and that's why you're being mistreated, that could be a human rights violation. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. But I would start by telling your employer in writing what's been happening and give them the chance to deal with it. Okay, again, if you can't do that, or if you've tried and nothing has happened, I want you to reach out to me and call me. All right, you can connect with me very easily through employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. Hopefully that makes sense, Renee. If you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate. Reach out to me and ask the follow-up question right now, and I'll answer it. Easy to do. By the way, I mentioned severance a few times, so I think this is a good opportunity to tell you and show you how you can find out for yourself how much severance you are owed. It's so easy to do. You can go to any web browser, whether it's on your phone, your tablet, your desktop, whatever you want, and go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. You see that on the screen right now, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. When you're there, just click on the severance calculator. That's it. You're right there, and you can find out in seconds, just by answering a few questions, how much severance you are owed. And you're going to be shocked by the answer. You're going to be dumbfounded, because you may believe you get a week per year of service or 2 weeks per year of service, maybe 8 weeks. All of that is wrong. Check out the severance calculator just by going to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca and find out the real amount that you are legally owed. It's completely free. It's completely anonymous. No names, no phone numbers, no company names. And if you want to, and only if you want, you can contact me directly from the severance calculator so that I can help you get your severance. Don't ever, ever, ever sign off on that severance offer, that severance letter, without checking it out. Again, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Check it out. All right. I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru Tumarkin LLP, and I am here answering your questions. I see a couple more questions that come in. I'm going to answer them, but you have still plenty of time to get your question answered. If you ask a question now, you will get an answer on this session. I promise. Again, just ask your question. I'm Lior Samfiru. Let's get some more questions answered. All right, this has got to be the best name of the day. Brave Asparagus. Man, that's a great name. My doctor has recommended that I go on short-term disability for my current condition. My employer's HR department says that the company is the one that pays out the short-term disability payments and not the insurance company, and therefore they're asking for my full medical details to be filled out by my doctor. Apparently, this information is supposed to be kept confidential, but I'm worried that senior management will somehow get to know about the reason for my medical leave and my privacy will be breached. Is the above common? Yes, there are situations where the employer itself pays short-term disability. They don't have an insurance company to do that. They pay the money themselves. Maybe they only have the insurance company pay for long-term disability. So if your employer, we call this being self-insured, if your employer is self-insured, they pay short-term disability themselves, you have to disclose the relevant medical information to them. There's no way around that. And you're right, they have to keep that confidential. They're not allowed to disclose it. If they do, if they don't protect that confidential information, there's absolutely legal consequences to that, okay? There could be legal action against them. So it's a very serious thing, and it's a big deal for them to not protect your privacy and to disclose that to others. So do the right thing. Make sure that you're telling your employer, just reaffirm that I expect you to protect my privacy. If you find out that they've done anything to not protect your privacy, let's connect, reach out to me, call me through employmentlawyer.ca. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you're denied disability coverage, this is for everyone as well listening. If you apply for short-term disability or long-term disability and you get denied, despite the fact that you know you can't work, your doctor says you can't work, but you get denied, let's talk. We have a whole team at the office, a whole team exclusively just dealing with this issue. That's how common it is. Insurance companies hope to get away with it, and they often do because people don't know any better. Well, you know better now. If your disability has been denied, we can fix that. We can reverse that. We can make sure that you get that compensation, that disability coverage that you should be getting. So I want you to connect with me if that's ever happened to you or to someone that you know. Just you can do that through employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. Fantastic. All right, let's continue right now answering some more questions. If you've just joined us, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer. Questions have come in. Fantastic. Keep them coming. Keep me busy. Keep me on my toes, right? Let's get some more questions answered. Amber has our next question. My employer has said we aren't making enough to support the company, and he is probably going to close down. If that happens, what rights do we have? Well, you have the right to get severance. The fact that the company is closing down because it's maybe just not profitable or it's not worth it for your employer does not relieve your employer from the obligation to pay you severance. And depending on how long you've worked there and the type of job that you have, your age, that could be as much as 2 years' pay. It can even be more than that in some cases. So you cannot and should not ever lose your job unless, of course, you get paid your full severance. The exception to that is if the company is formally in bankruptcy. But that's a very different thing than shutting down or closing your doors. Closing your doors, shutting down the business does not mean bankruptcy. That's a very, very different thing. So if you find out that the company is shutting down, you find out when your last day on the job is, immediately. At that point, you reach out to me. As soon as you know when you're no longer going to be working, call me right away. I'll make sure you get your severance. Your employer may not even realize that they have to pay you that severance. All right. So let's connect. You can reach me through employmentlawyer.ca. As soon as you know you've lost your job or you're about to, call me. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. All the contact information is there. All right. And I'll be happy to connect with you and make sure that you get what you're owed. Fantastic question. Very, very important question. I know a lot of businesses are in a bit of a precarious financial situation these days. That does not relieve them from their legal obligation, including the obligation to pay severance. If you're just joining us for the last 15 minutes or so, welcome. I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru, Tumarkin, LLP. You can ask me a question right now about employment law, about workplace rights, about your job, your compensation, your boss, your harassment, wrongful dismissal, you name it, I'm here to answer. So let's continue answering some questions. Questions have come in. Type in yours, please. Bring it on. Let's make sure that you have answers today. All right. Steading Stan has a question. Right. Am I allowed to record meetings with my manager? He has a habit of telling me one thing and later saying it never happened. I've had a write-up previously because of this and want to protect myself. Absolutely, you can. Now, keep in mind, your employer may tell you not to. So legally, there's no law that prevents you from doing that. You can record, as long as you're part of the conversation, you can record a meeting. If your employer says, we have a policy that says you're not allowed to, and you record it anyway, they may discipline you. That has nothing to do with the law. That has to do with you breaching an employer's policy. But beyond that, yes, you can, and you can record it. You can have your phone recording, let's say, in your pocket. And then if your boss says, hey, I never said that, you may have some proof. It could be a very useful thing to do, okay? Remember, you're not allowed to record someone else's conversation. So if those two people are talking, you're a part of it, you can't leave a recorder on the table and record them without them knowing. But if you're speaking to someone, you're allowed legally to record it, even if they don't necessarily know they're being recorded. So Steading Man, hopefully that, or Steading Stan, hopefully that makes sense. Follow-up questions, I'm right here still. Feel free to ask them. Don't be bashful. And let's make sure you get some more answers. Again, Lior Samfiru, that's me. Employment law, that's what we're talking about. Let's continue answering the questions that you've asked. Art has our next question. Is quiet firing harassment on the employer? I think you mean by the employer. It could be, but really what it is ultimately, quiet firing may be a form of constructive dismissal. So if your employer changed your job or reduced your pay or just making your work life miserable, by doing that, you may be able to consider that a constructive dismissal and force them to pay you severance. There's no way to physically stop your employer from, let's say, changing your job or cutting your pay. You can't physically restrain them. But what you can do is consider that to be a constructive dismissal and say, no, I'm not going to take this pay cut or this demotion. I am going to consider that a termination because you just did something, employer, that you're not allowed to do. And I'm going to consider that a termination. Now you have to pay me my severance. And I'm just going to move on to a different job. So that's what oftentimes happens in a quiet firing situation. Remember, your employer can let you go, but you can also, in some situations, consider yourself as having been let go. All right? That's what a constructive dismissal is. So if you think you're in a constructive dismissal situation, before you do anything, before you walk out of your employer, before you resign, I want you to call me. Okay? We have to do this correctly. Don't resign ever without speaking to me first. To connect with me, very easy to do. Just go to employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca, the place to do that. Hopefully that makes sense. Art, follow-up questions? I'm still here. All right, great questions today, and lots more have come in. Fantastic, amazing. I'm going to answer them. Caroline has our next question. My company took 2 hours away from our 4 to 12 p.m. Shift. I'm in a group of 6 girls supporting 2 individuals. Can they take this away from us? Higher sonary in the group are getting the 8 hours. So as I was saying to Art before, no, they're not allowed to do this, but that doesn't mean that there's a way to physically stop them from doing this. What you could do is consider that. That's a big change, obviously. Instead of 8 hours, you're now working 6 hours. That could be a constructive dismissal. So you may say, well, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not okay with that. That's not the deal that we have. I'm going to consider that to be a constructive dismissal and leave and get severance. Now, here's one of the reasons you want to do that. If you don't do that, you just continue working, and now instead of 8 hours, you're working 6 hours. You accept it, you continue working. By accepting this, you've now given the company the right to do it again. So a month from now, if they reduce you from 6 to 4 and then from 4 to 2, there's not going to be anything that you can do about it potentially because you let it happen that first time. Okay, you have to be very careful with that. Whenever your employer starts making changes, big, significant changes to the terms of your employment, you may want to consider that to be a constructive dismissal. That may be better than accepting and then opening the door up for more of these changes. All right. So happy to connect with you off air, Caroline. If you want to talk to me, if you want to discuss how we pursue constructive dismissal and for you to understand what you could be owed in this situation, very easy to do. Just go to employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca, and all the contact information you can ever need is right there. All right, fantastic. Good question. Very important question, and I'm sure you're in this situation. If you're just joining us for the last 10 minutes or so, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru, Tumarkin, LLP. I'm going to continue answering questions as I've been doing here for the last 20 minutes or so. You have time to still ask your question. You still have time. We're not out of time yet. You have time to ask your question about employment law, workplace rights, and everything you need to know in that category. All right. Next up with their question is distilled sunlight. If my contract says duties as assigned, is there a limit to the amount of work I can be asked to do? It seems like my workload just keeps increasing, but when can I say enough? So no, that's not enough for the contract of employment to say work as assigned is not necessarily enough for the employer to do whatever it wants. It's a question of when does it become something that really wasn't contemplated or could not have been contemplated when you signed that contract. So the employer may have some discretion, but that discretion has a limit. Once they start doing things that are beyond what you could have imagined or beyond what reasonably would have been contemplated when you first took the job, now they've crossed that line. Now it's potentially in the realm of constructive dismissal. So for me to tell you specifically in your situation whether your employer has crossed that line, I need to obviously understand what your job was, what it is, how your employer has changed it. So I want you to reach out to my office to schedule a consultation so we can have that discussion. Of course, to reach me, very easy to do, employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. All the contact information you can ever need is right there. All right, fantastic question. We're getting lots and lots of good questions. Sam has our next question. Thank you, Sam. Great show. Appreciate it. Okay. Oh, it's a compliment. You address everyone's query or questions with good rationale and logic. I appreciate that, Sam. Thank you. That's what I try to do. Distilled Sunlight had a follow-up question. Why is it called constructive dismissal? It doesn't seem very constructive. Yes. In this context, constructive doesn't mean good. It means a dismissal it essentially means indirect dismissal. A direct dismissal, a regular dismissal, is when you're called into a meeting, your employer says to you, we're letting you go. That's a direct dismissal. An indirect dismissal is where your employer is not letting you go. In fact, from their perspective, you're still working. You're the one considering it to be a dismissal. It's constructive dismissal. It happens indirectly by operation of what the employer did. So regular dismissal, company says you're gone. Constructive dismissal, you're saying to the employer, I'm leaving, I'm gone because of what you did. Now you have to pay me my full severance. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Any follow-up questions? No problem. I'm still here and happy to answer them. Let's get some more questions answered, shall we? By the way, again, if you just happen to open up your social media and you come across this broadcast here, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru Tumarkin, LLP, at your service right now, live, answering questions, live about employment law, about workplace rights, your job, your pay, your boss, your compensation. So ask a question. Just like Angelo asked a question. My employer laid me off last week after I worked there more than 3 years as a full-time employee. After I asked for 40 hours guaranteed, he laid me off. Instead, he gave me a record of employment, asking me to apply for EI. What is my legal rights? He didn't give me anything. So I'm assuming what your employer is doing here is they're putting you on a temporary layoff. Well, guess what? Not legal. You can consider that temporary layoff to be a termination of your employment and get severance. If you've been there for 3 years, depending on the specific job you were doing and your age, you could be owed anywhere from 3 to 8 or 9 months of severance. So, Angelo, you have the ability to get the company to pay you severance here. That's what you can do. You can't stop them from doing the layoff. You can't just show up to work when they told you not to. But you absolutely can get paid for that severance that you're owed, which, again, depending on your age and position, could be anywhere from 3 to 9 months. So, by all means, connect with me as soon as possible. Let's make sure that I can help you. You can reach me and connect with me through employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. All right, Angelo, hopefully that makes sense. Looking forward to connecting with you through employmentlawyer.ca. All right, fantastic. I'm going to not stop. I'm going to continue answering questions. You can still kind of squeeze your question in under the wire. So don't wait. Do that now. Voracious Martin says, my brother just got let go from his construction job, last week. He was there for 15 years. They hired a bunch of young guys at a lower rate. He was told his industry doesn't qualify for severance. Is that true? Absolutely not. Of course he gets severance. This is one of the biggest misconceptions, that construction employees are exempt from severance. Not at all. Yes, he gets severance. For him, after 15 years, again, depending on his age and the type of job that he was doing there, it could be anywhere from 12 to 18 months. Not days, not weeks, months. So yes, very, very common misconception. Even employers get this wrong all the time. So Martin, you got to get him to call me, man. Easy, okay? Let me help him. A letter from me gets this resolved, all right? He can reach me very easily through employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. All right? So, yeah, you get severance. So many times, if I had a dime for any time someone says, isn't construction exempt from severance? I'd have a lot of dimes. Not exempt. Full severance is still owed. All right, let's see. Next question from Katie. If a lowered seniority after coming back from medical leave, or I guess you're saying is a lowered seniority after coming back from medical leave, grounds for constructive dismissal. I'm not sure what you mean by lowered seniority. Seniority, the law decides what that seniority is. So I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. If you have a specific comment or example, let me know, and I'll be happy to answer that. Okay, so Voracious Martin says he's gonna get his brother to call me. Thank you. I'll be happy to connect with him. Okay, Angelo says that he's 50 years old, working as a superintendent. And Angelo, I think you said you were there for 3 years, so you'd be owed about 6 months' pay. You're struggling financially because you have a mortgage. Well, you're owed 6 months' pay. That's going to help with that mortgage. So I would right now contact me. Not tomorrow, not after the weekend. Now, okay? Go to employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. And let's connect so I can help you get that 6 month severance. 6 months. That's a lot. All right. Let's take one last question. One last question today. YYZ. If a company is conducting layoffs, is it wise to ask for a layoff with severance if the reason is to take care of a sick parent? Well, it's you can ask. A company can decide if to lay you off. You can ask for whatever you want, right? They don't have to do it. If you want to leave the job with severance and they want to do that, you can do that. The thing is this, you're also potentially entitled, if you have a sick parent that you have to care for them, you may be entitled to an unpaid leave of absence from work, okay, that they have to give you under the Employment Standards Act, a parental care leave. So in that situation, that may be something that you can do. But you can certainly ask for a layoff. They can say, no, we're not doing that. Or they can say yes, and now they have to pay you severance. That's up to you and them to figure that out. But the other option, again, is to get a medical leave. To get a leave of absence to care for your parents. All right. I think that's the time that we have for today. Thank you very much, everyone. Man, lots of questions, fantastic questions. You guys are always great with your questions. You keep me on my toes. You keep me thinking. I love that. I'm going to turn off social media now, but I'm getting back to work. If you haven't gotten your question answered or you want to connect with me so we can have a private discussion, don't forget the way to do that. Just go to employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. I'll be back here soon. So will my colleagues. In the meantime, employmentlawyer.ca, the place to go to. Thank you, everyone. I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru Tumarkin LLP. I'll see you all again